Hello guys and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be learning how to model these shocks in Blender 4.1. As you can see, the shocks is contrasting and elasting. So this is what we're gonna be learning. The tutorial is going to be quite lengthy because I'll need to cover the modeling part before we go into any simulations and all of that and adding of constraints. So if this is what you want to learn, keep watching. The tutorial is going to be beginner friendly. If you do your best to follow, you'll be able to model and simulate this at the end of the day. So that's enough being said. Let's jump in. So with a new scene open up in Blender, what we want to do is to model the shock absorber top. So let's go shift a mesh and let's add in our cylinder. So this is going to be the basis object we're going to be using to model that. So let's just move it up. So G Z3 or 2 rather. Just, so we can be working with a definite number, a precise value. So let's just raise it up like that. And then we want to insert this face like this. And we want to go E to extrude it out like that. And then we want to go I'm trying to think about how we want to make this look. um, okay, let's go E to extrude S to scale, and then we want to go E to extrude down like that. Okay, G to move it down like that. First let's just move it down, scale it in like that, and then just need to extrude it down like that, and this is pretty much what we have. So let's just add in some few loop cuts so it'll help us with subdivision surface modifier. So let's just insert that, shift R to repeat that action, add a loop cut here, two or three of them. Two should be fine. Want to add in a loop cut here, two should be fine. And then we want to add in, we're just adding this supporting loops, so when we do our subdivision surface modifier on it, it will look, very fine. So let's just type out now and go Control 1 and shade smooth. So we have one level of subdivision on this mesh, and it looks very, very fine. And I want to move it up a bit like that. So in total, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 5 meters on the Z axis. So now, with this active, with everything in edit mode, we want to, we can either duplicate. As a matter of fact, let's just loop select this and scale. Let's use our proportional tool to scale. So let us toggle on the proportional tool and then scale it out like that. This is kind of the cavity where the spring would be bouncing from at the end of the day. So we kind of need to make that space for the spring, you know. So with this now, we want to set our cursor to the world origin, and we want to give this a mirror modifier. So we have the same thing on the Z axis. So let's just go to our modifiers, go ahead and apply the subdivision and then give it a mirror modifier. Let's set the axis to the Z axis. Okay, it's not gonna work. Why? Our origin point it's on geometry, and let's just cancel this. Go right click, set origin to 3D cursor. So now let's go ahead and do the same thing. Give it a mirror modifier, and let's set it to the Z axis. We should see it down there. Perfect. So that is what we want. So our spring is gonna be bouncing in between these two mesh. So let us go ahead and model. As a matter of fact, let's select this top and just separate it by selection. And now we have two different objects, right? But another thing we want to do is set the origin to the geometry. And let's That's a mistake. Select this one, set origin to geometry. So the origin is here and the origin is here, which is good. Now this should work. Let's go ahead and model the spring now. And the spring is gonna, let's just go shift A, mesh and circle. Tap in RX90, and this is what we have. We want to scale it way down and toggle up the proportional tool and just try to place it, scale it down, place it somewhere that makes sense. We're gonna be using a screw modifier on this, so that's why we're trying to place it where we can screw it around to form the the spring for the shock absorber. So I'm trying to see if I've placed it at the right place. So let's go to modifier, generate, and let's give it a screw modifier. Now we're gonna do a few settings here. Let's go. Um, Let me look at it very well. Make sure it's going all around and it's in the right place. Okay, let's scale it down a bit. We don't want it to be too thick. Something like this should be fine. As a matter of fact, we might need to make it a little bit wider. So in order to make this wider, we might need to go to the top view and just move it a little bit. So let's go to top view. That's the right place to move it from. And then just go G and move it out so it can be wider. So this is what we have. Now let's okay, this is looking good. Let's go to the screw and let's give it a screw value of 1.5, let's say. Okay, that's too much. It's too stretchy. Let's make screw 1 point. As a matter of fact, we might just make it 1 at the end of the day. 1 should be fine. 1 is okay. And let's go to the iteration. First of all, we would need to look at this to know how many iterations would work. We don't just put iteration value without looking at what we're doing. So let's give it a value of, let's look at it very well. I think 8 should work. Yeah, something like 8 or 9, 10. Something like this should work actually. So you're just gonna have to place the spring where it makes sense, and we're gonna have to model some other parts that works with the spring because usually if you use a curved object, you can go ahead and first of all, let's see if we increase this screw value, it's stretching in the wrong direction, right? So to fix that, let's first of all tap out and we don't want it to stretch up, we want it to stretch down. So RX 180, press enter. So now it's gonna be stretching in the right direction. We want it to stretch down, we don't want it to stretch up. But if that's what you want, you can work with the up value. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we want it to stretch down, not up. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's um, let's look at it. It's already looking good. I think we're almost done with the modeling part. So let's just tap in and looking at it. Okay, we want our cursor to be here, right? With this active, let's go Shift S and cursor to selected. So we have our cursor there. So we're gonna have to tap out and add in a tap out like that. Shift A. I don't know why this is hanging. Sorry. Shift A. Yeah, that's it. Mesh and let's add in a single vert. Let's add a single vert. Now we have a single vert. Now we're gonna go to our I'm just trying to look at it front view, no side view, yeah. And then extrude out that single vert. So you're going to extrude it out like that. Then go to the back view. Uh, okay, back view, and then extrude it out like that. Just trying to extrude out the single vert. And then extrude it out like that. And then extrude it out like that. So this is basically what we have going around. So H, select everything. Holding shift to deselect the first one, and we want to go control shift B and then roll your little mouse to add a few more vertices like that. Now, the first thing you want to do with all of these vertices is you want to use your loop tool and press that space so you have an even spacing between all the vertices. But that's not important anyway. So let's just convert this to a curve. Go to your curve data property and then go under your geometry and then depth. And let's just increase that value till we have almost the same size as the spring itself. So let's just increase that size a bit. Yeah, something like that. So with that now, we can see we are getting somewhere. So let's just scale that a little bit and try to place it very well. So it looks like, it's part of the spring, but it's actually not part of the spring. This is the technique we use for spring. So if you don't look really close, you would not see that there is a gap between. So let's just go ahead and shade smooth, and it's looking really, really natural and okay. So from the front view, this is what we have, right? We're gonna we're gonna do a few things. First of all, let's select that vert, and we're gonna duplicate it and bring it down. We're gonna place it somewhere that makes sense. So that's just trying to rotate it and move it around. Try to place it somewhere that makes sense. So you might need to go G, Z, bring it down, and just try to place it. Try to place it in the right spot. Try to place it right. Okay, so what we want to do after that is we want to select that and enable the modifier. Holding shift, select this, Control J, and join them to be one object. Now we want to apply the modifier, this one. Holding shift, select this one, and Control J, and join them. So now we have three major objects in our scene. So the next thing we want to do is, before we play this animation, we're gonna have to give physics to this top and the bottom. So let's give it rigid body and send it to passive. Select the bottom, give it rigid body, leave it as active, and now if you play it, the bottom part should fall. It will just go by the law of gravity, which is what we want. Now select that bottom, holding shift, select the top, go to object, rigid body, and let's go and connect this. Now it will give us this empty object. Now let's scale this up so we can see it very well. And this empty object has added a rigid body constraint for us. So let's just change it to generic spring, and under linear, let's go to the Z location and enable it. So if you play it now, based on the stiffness and the dampening, it's not gonna fall completely. It's just gonna bounce. So we're gonna have to tweak this stiffness setting. Let's make this half. 3.5 should, okay, let's make it 3.5. Let's play, and you'll see that it will go way down, like it's gonna go down more than it did before. Now the dampening value is how fast it'll return. How much spring is the stiffness. This is something you'd have to mess around with to know how it works. The stiffness, right, is how um, the distance it'll go down. How much it'll spring down. Why the dampening is this the stiffness. Oh damn, I'm mixing it up. But the stiffness is how much it'll go down. Why the dampening is how much bounciness you'd get from that. From that stiffness. If it makes sense, just play around with it. You'll find out. So let's just make the screw value 1 on this, and we're gonna add in drivers right now. So let's add a driver. Right click and let's edit the driver. For the instance and object, we're going to use the bottom cylinder, and we're going to change a few settings. Right click on the driver, edit driver, and we're going to change this to the Z location. Currently, you see it is stretching too much on the Z location, right? That's because there's a positive value on this. We need to make that a negative value because we want the spring to be coming down. So let's edit this and go to the value, and let's put a negative sign on it. So you see that the spring is now coming down, but currently it is stretching, and that's because we made the spring in 10 or 8 iterations. So we'd have to divide it by 8. So let's edit this under the value before that point 1. Let's go divided by 9. Okay, it was 9, and then we have it like that. Currently, though, you can see that the bottom cylinder is not going with the spring, and that's because I think we need to apply the location. Yeah, apply the location, and that should work. Now, if you go ahead and play it, you should see it bouncing quite nicely, which is what we want. Now, this has brought us to the end of the tutorial. There are other few settings we're going to look at, but if you have made it this far, I think you've been able to get the whole point and the whole idea for this tutorial so far. So you can go ahead and tweak any of these stiffness or dampening settings to get a different result. But like I tried to explain, the stiffness is how much the spring will resist being pulled, right? While the dampening is how fast it'll come back. Like if the spring goes down and up, like 5 times, and then the dampening value you increase it, it will not go down and up 5 times again. It reduces how much it will go up and down. That's what dampening is. So I think that's a better explanation. Stiffness is how far the spring would, you know, move down, how far it will stretch. That's what the stiffness stands for. Why the dampening is how many times it will go up and down in that process. So it will resist going up and down. So you can add a cylinder and put in the center, but it will not go with them. It will not go with the stretchiness unless you give it a constraint. And I will not be covering that in this tutorial. I'm just showing you that you can add a cylinder, but it will not go with the stretching unless you give it a stretch constraint. If you give it a stretch constraint, it will stretch along with them, but I'm not going to cover that in this tutorial. Like I said, if you've made it this far, you have gotten what you need for this tutorial. You really don't have to, you know, you really don't have to do this once. I'm just trying to show you guys that you can actually add in a cylinder and, give it constraint if you want. So guys, that has been the tutorial. If you still want to watch what I'm doing, you can just stick around and watch. But I have just showed you guys what I wanted to show you. As you can see, it's bouncing, but the cylinder is not following along. So you might just